Welcome.
Welcome.
Welcome to First Parish, Unitarian Universalists of Arlington.
We choose.
We choose.
We choose to be
a liberal religious community.
Welcoming.
Welcoming to all.
We encourage each other
on our spiritual journeys.
Support one another
through the changes in our lives.
And challenge the excesses
and injustices of our time.
Called to love.
To love.
To love.
And upheld by joy.
We live our faith.
I am Bill Licea-Kane, and I use they, them. I am one of the volunteer worship associates here at First Parish. As we prepare to settle into prayer and a moment of silence together, I want to remind us that this is a moment of human silence, to be as quiet as practical rather than as quiet as possible, including tiny voices. They are silence. Focus for a moment on your body and get as comfortable and practical with your body. And I'm going to model that, I'm sorry. Then, focus on your words and thoughts in this present moment. God, known by many names, the Creator, the one who sees me, the Almighty, the Eternal, the Provider. And these are just the names from Genesis, the first book of the Hebrew Bible. There are so many more books, so many more names, from west and east and north and south, so many more names from throughout the world. Universal soul, we dream a world that is aspirational, a world where strangers are welcomed, are cared for, and loved. A world where love is love. A world where sisters, brothers, and siblings, she, he, and them, can proudly proclaim who they are. A world where we can gather together in joy, in protest, in grief, in celebration. A world where we can worship as we choose, and a world where we can speak freely without fear. A world where rooftops simply protect from the weather. A world where we are all us. A world where we listen to them, understand them, and together know that out of many, one is a strength. A world where all are fed, are clothed, are housed, are medically cared for, and educated. A world that we must act to build this world we dream of. And a world of beauty, and sometimes a world of silence. Listen to the echoes of your mind as we join together for 2 minutes of silence together. Amen. Now is the time of our service for our offering. Half of your gift today supports the ongoing work of First Parish. This September, the other half of your offering supports Sexual Violence Prevention Association, SVPA. It's the first and only organization dedicating to preventing sexual violence systemically. Located in Boston and Washington, it is a national nonprofit. Their work spans policy advocacy, research, institutional reform, and community education. SVPA is proudly led by marginalized survivors, including BIPOC, LGBTQ+ individuals, and disabled people, ensuring that their work is informed by the living experiences of those most impacted. To donate with your phone, please see the instructions on the order of the service. Please give generously as you're able and from the heart.
Days of sunshine. I invite you to hear this reading by American poet Rosemary Watola Traumer. When my arms were the most empty, when my hands were unable to hold anything, and I was most unselved, that was when I felt the most gathered up by love, an immeasurable and wildly precise love. Even when I wanted to push love away, even when I felt too broken to be found, I felt love gather all my pieces, not to fix them, not to put them back together. Love simply held every shattered thought and every ruined dream and cradled me just as I was, not because I deserved it, just because that is what love does. I am learning to trust this feeling of belonging to the world, broken as it is, broken as I am, learning to trust I need not do a thing to belong. I do not know how it all works or why I was able to receive it, but I can't unknow this unfathomable truth, how love holds us when we cannot hold anything, gentle as silence, fierce as a flood, true as the breaking itself. The way the ocean forever holds every wave, the way the shore forever changes to hold the ocean.
This story comes from a woman named Jamie. She says, "The loneliest moment of my life happened while I was surrounded by people. I was traveling to Ann Arbor, Michigan from my home in Hawaii, catching my final connecting flight in Chicago's bustling O'Hare Airport. My dad was gravely ill. It had been only 2 weeks since I had last seen him, and he seemed healthy and vibrant and full of life. We had had such a good visit. So when my sister called to tell me he was on his deathbed, to say I was shocked is an understatement. We hung up, and I booked the next flight to the mainland. While waiting to board the final leg of my flight, I mindlessly browsed through magazines, preoccupied with worry. I decided to call the ICU waiting room to get an update from my family. But the person who answered the phone informed me that none of my family members were there. That meant one of two things. Either my father was better and had been moved to a room, or that he had died. I called my sister at her house. The moment she heard my voice, she said, "Oh, honey." I knew in an instant that he was gone, and neither of us could talk through our sobs. I hung up and shoved my phone back into my purse, blinded by tears and racked with guilt. I had to get somewhere private, away from these throng of travelers. I could feel them staring in my direction, but as soon as I looked up, their eyes darted away. I yearned for a moment of connection, a glimmer of understanding from another human being, but came up empty. Jamie says she felt utterly and completely alone. Looking around, Thinking of those of you on Zoom, I know that grief is swirling around many of us. Some of us are mourning the death of a loved one, a grandparent, a husband, a sister, a friend, a fellow parishioner, a spouse, a neighbor. 7 congregants have died in the last 12 months. And grief is not just for death. Some of us are living with chronic illness. Some are struggling in our relationships. Some are thinking about changes here. Some are worried about aging parents or dizzy from the state of the world. And grief can also be a response to something more vague, a loss of certainty, the questioning of one's own judgment, the changing of the seasons. Grief, a sense of loss, can happen even with good things. As a new mom, I certainly feel the loss of independence, even as I delight in DJ's arrival. Or the celebration of retirement comes with the loss of identity, routine, or purpose. Or sending the youngest one to college and grappling with the joys and sorrows of an empty nest. Grief is swirling around many of us. And how many of us are familiar with the 5 stages of grief? Many of us thrive on what we think the stages suggest. We like order. We like lists. You too can get an A+ in grieving if you follow 5 steps. First, denial, a temporary defense. Something's wrong, it's not true. Second, anger, the stage where we might look to blame or rage. Third is bargaining. If this pain goes away, I promise to do X, Y, and Z. Fourth is depression, when despair takes over, a sorrowful apathy. And then finally, the 5th stage, acceptance. A magical holy grail where one can embrace the inevitability of loss. Here's the thing. Those 5 stages were never meant to be used in the way that they typically are. In fact, pointing people to those 5 stages, suggesting they can get an A+ in grieving, can be harmful. Dr. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross came up with the 5 stages in 1969 after studying how terminally ill patients cope with their mortality. And she herself has said that she regrets that these stages were interpreted in a linear progression. And I hate to say this for those of us who are hoping to ace this experiment, but from what I have seen, death and dying and grief are messy. We often oscillate between a flurry of emotions. Grief isn't linear. It is more like a hellish roller coaster some days, with unpredictable ups and downs. And grief can make us behave in ways that surprise us. Perhaps we withdraw when we typically have welcomed company. Or perhaps our fuses are short when generosity typically comes easily to us. And sometimes we have feelings that are harder to admit, like total hopelessness, or on the other end of the spectrum, relief. Grief can isolate us, making us feel adrift at sea, seeking for connection, yearning to be seen. Grief counselor Megan Devine writes, "You do not need solutions. You do not need to move on from your grief. You need someone to see it, acknowledge it. You need someone to hold your hand while you stand there in blinking horror, staring at the hole that was your life. Some things cannot be fixed. They can only be carried. This image resonates with me. Grief is not a thing to be fixed. It is a thing we carry. Jamie continues her story. At the airport, she says that she rolled her bags into the nearest bathroom, stood at the sink, and cried. My dad was gone, and I didn't get to say goodbye, she writes. I didn't make it in time. Suddenly, I felt a gentle hand on my shoulder, a woman's voice. I know something horrible has just happened to you. I'm so sorry. She didn't tell me her name. She didn't ask what happened. All she did was stand there with me until my tears slowed, then quietly waited while I washed my face. It couldn't have taken more than 5 minutes, but those were a crucial 5 minutes. I needed to fall apart, but I needed someone with me while it happened, to not be alone. We exited the bathroom, and Jamie says the woman vanished. Was she even real? I've asked myself that question many times over the years. When I close my eyes, I can still feel the hand on my shoulder. Sometimes I wonder if she was an angel. If I were ever to run into her again, I'd give her a gigantic hug and tell her what a profound difference she made in my life, what a lasting impression her empathy made. The comfort she provided in that moment was so simple yet powerful. By being present and bearing witness, she transformed a sterile airport bathroom into a sanctuary. There I was, boarding my connecting flight, and she restored my faith in human connection. There is such a healing power in simply being seen, not rescued and not fixed, just witnessed to. And this is part of the sacred work we do together here with one another. We journey side by side. And while time and companionship might make things easier, grief will always be with us. Dr. Louise Token has a theory that we grow around our grief. We're often told that there's a timeline for grief, but growing around our grief as a model challenges this idea. To put it another way, the container in which our grief resides gets bigger. This is a significant departure from how we used to talk about loss. People used to talk about grief as a thing that could shrink. Do all 5 stages and your grief gets smaller. But that's not really how it works. Instead, grief is a thing you carry. This is you. This is your grief. At one point, it might be like this, where grief takes up most of the jar. In time, the container grows. The grief has stayed the same. Even bigger still, the container that we have can hold more than our grief, even as our grief stays the same. So what else do we carry in this big jar? What else do we have room for as we grow around our grief? For me, one of the needed elements is joy. And back in March, Reverend Stevie and Reverend Tricia talked about the difference between happiness and joy. And Reverend Stevie, in his Time for All Ages, used an apt metaphor. Happiness is like a bouquet of flowers, beautiful but shallow and temporary. Joy, on the other hand, is like a lily in the mud. It has depth, resilience, beauty mixed with dirt and grime. Perhaps today we might describe it as a rose bush. Audre Lorde and Adrienne Marie Brown write that joy is a form of resistance. And while I think that's true, I think it's worth teasing that out just a little bit. Because for myself, I really struggle sometimes with that as a metric. In a world full of suffering, how do I justify indulgence or an individualized joy? Because joy as resistance, especially when embodied by people of privilege, can end up centering the individual. An individual's vacation, a particular person's fabulous manicure or spa day. Adrienne Marie Brown is a Black feminist or womanist author, and her identity matters in these descriptions of joy. What I hear in her work and in other BIPOC theologians is a call to collective joy, an intentional practice of lifting all of us up. Adrienne Marie Brown says, in a society that's trying to erase you, to not only say that I exist, but I am fundamentally full of joy is an act of revolution. Collective joy leaves no one behind. Collective joy instead creates moments of connection and beauty in a world aching for more of that. Collective joy, the ways in which we come together to build it, is one of the reasons I've cherished both of DJ's baby ceremonies. Back in February, when DJ was just 4 weeks old, we had her naming ceremony at Temple Shir Tikva in Winchester. We were looking for a Reform shul to welcome us as an interfaith couple and welcome our daughter into Jewish community. Similarly to a child dedication, a Jewish naming ceremony is an opportunity to welcome a baby into sacred tradition, to have them honored as unique gifts and given a Hebrew name. Now, I would like a little credit for this, because if you're doing the math, in February, we were 4 weeks postpartum. And we were a little bleary-eyed. And we got out of the house in respectable clothing. And we didn't forget the baby. And once we made it out on that cold February night, we were given such a warm welcome. We were strangers to that congregation, but still they embraced us. And just like here, it was part of normal worship. And when the Shabbat service ended, people came up to us, welcoming us into community. One person in the congregation came up to me and DJ and said these words of radical hospitality and witness. She said, "Thank you for sharing your joy with us. And all I wanted to say back to all of Shir Tikva was thank you for seeing us. Thank you for being a place where joy can arrive, even when sleep-deprived and cold and nervous. To bear witness to someone is an act of love, not to fix or solve or even intervene, but simply to say, I see you. Your joys, your sorrows, I am here. Let me carry things with you. And I see this doing this all the time here at First Parish. When we keenly listen to one another, when we make a meal, when we offer someone a ride, when we sit down and linger with a newcomer at coffee hour, when we show up for the important moments in each other's lives, like so many of you did yesterday at Dick Terry's memorial service. In these tumultuous times, it's incredibly powerful when a community can offer steady presence to help one another carry the sorrow and perhaps add a little joy. So thank you. Thank you for sharing your grief with one another. Thank you for sharing your joys. Thank you for sharing. Amen, and blessed be.